So this is the last of the series tonight. I have to say I enjoyed this topic. I hope you did. And so just thinking about anything to say tonight, I don't feel like I have so much to add as just to kind of review a little bit kind of where I started from. Was thinking about the quality of tenderness is having very much to do with the ability to be touched by the things that happen in life. That openness to feeling, that openness to being touched without being touchy, without being touched meaning kind of sensitive to insult or something like that, which is more of an ego thing. It's just to actually let the beauty and the poignancy of life and experience be a part of you on a regular basis. And, in my training in meditation, there's always a lot of emphasis upon mindfulness and presence and noticing. And sometimes it was not as spoken as clearly that what happens as you actually are present, as you actually sink into this present moment, is that you start to be more reachable, if I can say that, by the things happening around you. There's less barriers there. There's less defense. And so there's part of tenderness is to reclaim one's sensitivity without sacrificing wisdom. Shall we put it that way? I mean, children, infants are very sensitive, not necessarily very wise, not necessarily very deep understanding of what's going on. And so part of the fruit of wisdom is to get to be tender. And, last week I was talking about suffering, seeing suffering in yourself and in others, which is actually a deep part of what Buddhists call right view. To see the world rightly is to see that. And that's part of the tenderization of the practice, is that sort of sensitivity to the challenges of being human and seeing the way people are in response to that without judgment. And so the without judgment part is very important, because it becomes touching when the judgment is not there. I also talked about speaking with tenderness. That, in the way that touch is a form of communication, the energy of your words are a form of communication, and they're actually a form of touch almost. The way that the voice sounds, the kind of energy with which something is spoken, it has almost the immediacy of touch. And you can talk to animals who don't necessarily know your language, but they know the sound. They know the energy of your voice. Even wild animals you can sometimes end up talking to them, and they sense your lack of harm in your tone. So we spoke a little about really being more conscious of that, conscious of the tone with which we speak, how we're actually touching people by our words through the tone of what we say and the energy that's behind it, since people are really finely tuned to the energy of words. especially if you know someone well, you can almost sense when someone is judging you, just without them saying anything, just the slightest mannerisms or the slightest tone. It comes through. So, along with talking about speaking from tenderness, I talked as well about speaking for it, or I think I spoke more about speaking for the heart. Speaking about what matters, which is speaking for the heart. Speaking what matters to you. Letting people see that. It's a real skill. It's a skill to let people in. We're often more comfortable with exchanging information, exchanging ideas. But the actual, what matters is not necessarily right there. Or even if we're talking about ideas, sometimes it's what matters that will really allow someone to hear you, if they can hear what matters to your heart. I think human beings are just built that way. It's part of our experience as social animals. We have more influence than we know with each other, for better or worse. And so I spoke about that too as a part of this whole topic of tenderness. I spoke some too about the importance of balance, equanimity, of resilience. I think I used the word resilience around being tender. So, it's actually, the resilience of the heart in its tenderness, I believe, has to do with being rooted in something more universal, something more vast than our puny selves. And how you conceive of that doesn't matter so much to me. But there's the actual embodied experience of connectedness. And again, that comes through the heart. I've sometimes taught people that through the back of the heart, through connecting through the back of the heart to the vastness. But the two go hand in hand. And so in a world where you actually let what matters to your heart matter, it's also important to have your heart be grounded in a vast connectedness, rather than feeling like you're just at it alone. That can be very frustrating. I'm just kind of pausing here for a moment, see what else needs to be said. I think that it's not common in this world to have an education in the heart, in a certain sense, that you talk about it, that you point out how it works. We all have an education in as much as we have a heart. We're thrown into the world full of feeling. We have, human beings that we relate to from a very young age, or we wouldn't exist, we wouldn't survive. And so we are this feeling connected heart, and yet the education of it is often haphazard at best. So I think of these conversations about a lot of things here, conversations in the Dharma, is a bit about trying to provide an education for what it is to be a sensitive being in this world. To be wise, to be wisely sensitive in this world, and to be a benefit, to be of some service for being wisely sensitive, wisely, sensitively present. So I think that's what I have for you tonight. Maybe not a lot. I'd like to hear from you just about your experience this week. And so I'll switch